Ready? Welcome back to Fabrication 101. Great to have you guys back. Hopefully you guys had a good Memorial Day weekend, because that was yesterday. Had a pretty good time, hung out with some family. Anyway, I'm back in the garage. I'm not working on any Bronco stuff. Bronco's outside the garage. Give me some room to work in here. But anyway, I'm still continuing this, simple projects, things that we can do to build our skills, improve, and try and get better at this fabrication stuff. And one of the things I've been meaning to deal with is a storage solution for all these grinders that I have. And I actually have a couple more that are in a cabinet. And I also have an Eastwood SCT that I might try to hang off of this thing as well. So here we go. I'm going to try to build this thing fairly simply. I kind of was roughing out a rough design here, and I think I'm going to throw all that out the window, and I'll show you why. I'm going to try to use up a bunch of this leftover aluminum stuff. A lot of these pieces, or all of these pieces, are leftover from the FedEx or bread truck that I got the Cummins motor out of for the Bronco. I cut a lot of that stuff up to make the original center console, the trans tunnel, and all the flooring in the back of the Bronco came out of all these aluminum shelves that were in that truck. So I'm going to try to use up some more of these. I think it'll work pretty well. I got some nice angled brackets that I think will work really well for the support pieces on the sides. I think there's just enough of these couple pieces here to give me the length I want. So getting started on it, we're going to have to knock some rivets out of those pieces. It's usually not too difficult. We'll see how these aluminum pieces go. Cut them into shape. This thing's not going to be super fancy. It's going to be knocked out of scrap material, scrap aluminum. Try to make it kind of cool, but it's really going to be more function over form. So let's get started. Alright, so I was really hoping to use my air chisel to knock these rivets out, but the smallest punch or chisel I had for my air hammer was too big, so I had to use a hand punch, which went pretty easily. It actually went a lot easier once I started grinding the rivets down a little bit. The only kind of downside was it got a lot harder to find the rivets, so I kind of had to start with like a sort of punch just to see how easy it would go, but then it came out pretty easily. After they were all knocked out, we had to cut them down to size. You can see I didn't need to use the whole thing, but just using my bandsaw here was easily able to knock those down to the right lengths. I think they're about 12 inches tall now. If that's, I remember correctly, how I did that. Clean them up a little bit, then we'll go grab the next piece of the puzzle here and see how everything fits together. Amazingly enough, this piece, I didn't really feel like I needed to cut it down, make it any smaller. It fit pretty good here. I'm just squaring up the edges, make sure I have a nice clean edge on there. Nice square edge as best as I can get it so that it fits properly, or fits nicely together. I like to have the plasma, or not the plasma, but the bandsaw cut edges to weld to. Again, the plasma cut edges, if you don't get those really clean, there's always some aluminum oxide in there, and it kind of makes a mess of those welds if you're not careful. Measure it all out, make sure everything looks good, but I needed to clean it more. This is my Eastwood SCT surface conditioning tool. It works really good for this, and it leaves kind of like a nice brushed finish on the aluminum. If this was going to be a piece that's outdoors, I would highly recommend that you throw some sort of sealer on there, some clear or something like shark hide, because that brushed aluminum will get dirty really easily. Trimming down another piece to make the bottom part where the grinder's going to hang on to. Again, all this stuff is just scrap, leftover stuff from the old truck that I got the motor for my Bronco out of. So some of the pieces aren't perfect, aren't real pretty, but I think they'll work well enough for what I'm using them for. Alright, we got all our pieces cut out. They look a little rough right now, but I think this is going to work really well. So this is going to go about here-ish. See if it'll stay there. This one will obviously go on the opposite end, about here-ish. And then this piece is going to go kind of like this. See if I can do this without knocking it over. And this is where the grinders are going to get hung on this underneath here. Oops. Jenga. And then on the opposite side of this piece, I'm going to put some posts or bolts or whatever I can figure out as a place to put all the different grinding wheels and wire brushes and all that stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get it tacked together now and move on from there. Alright, so while I'm tacking these together, I'm just trying to go for a pretty close to corner fit up on these corners. Gives a nice place for the weld to sit, makes it pretty easy to weld and get a nice looking weld. The way I like to do these tacks, especially if I'm doing them without filler metal, I just like to kind of crank the machine up about 20 or 30 amps hotter than it needs to be, and it makes it pretty easy to just hit it really hard and hot and fast and get a pretty decent little tack weld without having to add that filler metal in there. So get these last couple pieces on there, and then I think we'll be ready to get it all welded up. Alright, it's all tacked together. Actually came out pretty good. It's only a little out of square, but I think it's going to work just fine. Remember, for me this is more about function than it is form, but it's coming along pretty good. You can see all the grinders just kind of hang on there. They're not going to go anywhere. I actually have room, I think, if I needed to, I could put another one in there. Oop, that one's stuck. I'll get rid of it there. But anyway, that would work pretty good. I just noticed this cutoff wheel. Let's see, where was it? Has a broken spot in it. And this is very bad. That's a brand new cutoff wheel, and it's ruined. You cannot use those anymore. You should never try to use a broken cutoff wheel. Because they will just continue to disintegrate and come apart. But that's part of the reason why I wanted to build this little thing, because no doubt that grinder probably just fell from where I had been setting it, and that's what ruined that perfectly good cutoff wheel. So let's go ahead and get that fixed. What I'll do is a lot of times I take those and just break them in half, throw them away. Although here in my shop, there's no real risk of anybody else using these. But if you're in a job shop or like I do in my classroom, it's a good idea to break those in half so that people can't use them. All right, let's get this. I think we're going to go ahead and get it welded. All right, so we get this welded. We'll start with a little bit of cleanup. It never hurts to have your material and your filler extra clean. There's always a little bit of residue on that stuff, and as soon as that nice clean aluminum hits the air, aluminum oxide begins to form. So if you can, it's always nice to give it a little brush. Sorry about the view of the top of my head. I know most of you guys probably didn't want to see that, or I know still don't want to see it anyway, but it's what you get. Those corners are all welded up. Now it's time to come around and do the front parts. I've been playing a lot lately with using the pulse settings on this machine. in addition to the filler, just so I get nice, good looking welds. And I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm just getting the hang of it, trying to figure out what works best for what I'm doing. I did figure out a while back that this machine balance is kind of backwards, and that was a little weird for a while, but once I got that kind of sorted out, it seemed to work a lot better. Like for instance, right now I think my balance on this machine is set at like 20%, and usually it's kind of, at least in my experience, it's the opposite. All right, she's all welded up. Some of those welds came out pretty okay. I mean, I'm not the greatest aluminum, that one's a little dirty, aluminum TIG welder there ever was. I'm pretty pleased with most of those. Anyway, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this aluminum rod down into, I think, 6-inch pieces or so, and make drill some holes in here, and they're going to stick up that way to create some posts and some places to put wheels, grinding wheels, flap discs, all that kind of stuff. So we'll get it cut up and drill some holes and get it welded in there. All right, so as you can see, I kind of knocked up a quick little tool here to bend these little hooks. This is just some 3/8 aluminum bent around a piece of 1-inch round tubing. And it did a pretty good job of bending these hooks out. Once I bent the first one, kind of realized what I needed to do. Made it quite a bit of a difference. So just getting them tacked into place here. Then I go ahead and just weld both sides of these pieces. Again, taking the time to clean everything makes a huge difference. It probably should have gone ahead and clamped this thing down because I did move it right there. And if I remember correctly, and you can kind of see the black mark, I kind of stuffed my filler metal or stuffed my tungsten into the piece. So the nice thing is a lot of these newer machines, they're so sensitive that if you get your tungsten too close, it cuts the power, so you don't get that big blowout. And doesn't quite make as big a mess as it used to with a lot of the older machines. So anyway, we'll get this sucker all welded up, and I think we're about done here. All right, added some hooks on there to hang the cords on. It'd be nice to not have to wrap them around the grinders anymore, so they don't get all twisted. And I went ahead and added this little piece of angle iron over here, and this is a place for me to hang my Eastwood SCT on here off the side. So pretty pleased with it, the way this is coming out. Again, it's more of a function over form, so it's not really the coolest looking grinder rack out there, but I think it's going to work really well. The only problem I have is I don't know where I'm going to put it. I kind of built this without really thinking about that, and I don't have a really good spot for it right now. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. I think I might go ahead and hang it on the edge of that wooden bench for a while until I can figure out a better place to put it. So anyway, that's gonna do it for this episode of Fabrication 101. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Check in next time, see what we're up to. Another one of these little couple more little projects like this to do out in the shop. Couple little more things I want to work on. Not much to do on the Bronco right now. Got a couple other big projects in the works. Hopefully they'll be coming along soon. But we'll see you guys in the next episode of Fabrication 101. In the meantime, do yourself a favor, do me a favor, and go build something.